Okay, today's video is build vlog number 4, and I'll be trying to recycle milk jugs into 3D printer filament. And I have a machine that takes pellets of plastic and melts them down into a filament already, but I've been trying to do it with PLA, and I've had some success with it, but at the same time, it's not quite. PLA is not the best material, I think, for doing this because it has to be very dry. It can't have any water content on it at all. And if it does have water content, it makes bubbles in the filament, or even worse, breaks the filament right there, which I've never seen, but it does leave bubbles in the filament, which eventually leads to the filament breaking because PLA is a brittle material. And as you coil it up, or as it uncoils off of a spool, you'll actually get it to break on the spot where it's weakest, which is where the bubbles are at. And also another thing is, with the bubbles, if it does print the bubble, it will actually be just a lack of material right there where you would otherwise have material, and it just leaves a much worse quality print. So I'm going to try today with HDPE, which stands for, not sure. I'll have it in my next video on this subject, but it's milk jugs, basically. Well, not basically, it is. I've taken milk jugs and I've cut them into squares about this big, about 2 inches by 1 inch is this square, but I've cut them down smaller for some pieces. And today I'm gonna put them through this blender. I'm gonna put them through this blender here, which I've modified slightly because it was broken, and that's the only reason I actually got it. It had this, it has broken fins on the inside, which actually are supposed to go into these grooves here. And one of the grooves has a limit switch in it that actually lets the blender know that the blender top is on, and that there is it's on, the blender top is on, and you can spin up without like breaking something, basically. So I modified that slightly. The next thing I want to modify, but I haven't yet, is the controls. It's controlled with this, there's probably some kind of processor in there that just says, this button equals this kind of motion for the motor to turn on and off and such like that. I want it to be a constant full speed motor all the time, so I'm going to have to modify it to where I can bypass this controls right here. But I'll do that at a later time if this is a viable technique. And then after that, I then take the little bits I get and I put them through this. Okay, I'm gonna have to change the angle here. One moment. Okay, so I put them in this. I take all the bits out of here. After I blended it, I put them in here, into this strainer. And this strainer is actually a little bit bigger than, the holes in the strainer are actually a little bit smaller than I would like. See, these bits right here are actually not falling into the strainer, or into the hole, and I'm actually pretty sure that almost all of these bits right here would actually fit into the filament maker. But it actually gives me these really fine chips down there, which you can see, and the little bits are falling still. But it gives me these really fine chips. They're actually good. If I wanted to do, I don't know what the difference would be if I were to put big chips in like these versus put in fine chips into the machine. But if it ever were to make a difference and I notice a difference, then I might, want to refine everything down to just smaller chips. And what happens in the blender is pretty lame. What happens in the blender is when you're blending all these big chunks of plastic, what happens is all the tiny chunks stay on the bottom, and all the big chunks stay on the top. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pick out all the big pieces after I've thrown them in the strainer. Strained out most of the little ones, or the tiny ones that are really fine. I'm just going to, by hand, pick out the bigger ones. can actually see little bits of red in there from the cap. And I actually hope that that makes the entire batch pink, but I've never actually had great success with that either. That was another thing. When you print with... I bought these pellets online from a dealer that supplies for like... specifically for people who are making their own filament. And their filament colors... they say you're supposed to add, if you want a different color, you're supposed to add colorant, right? Well, the color pellets that they give me never seem to work because maybe it's a different, I'm not running it at a high enough temperature or whatever, but the color beads or the color pellets always seem to stay in one spot instead of really... It's like one spot's blue and the rest of it's clear, and then one spot's blue and the rest of it's clear and stuff like that, and it's really annoying to me. It turns out really cool prints, like the prints are actually look like they're kind of like have a, not an Apache, but like a Mayan cover kind of look to them, like for wool Mayan stuff, you know, like blankets and ponchos and stuff. It does have kind of like that look to it, which is really cool, but at the same time, it's the colorant pellets are more brittle than the regular pellets, and it adds points where the filament likes to break off, and where the prints themselves are more brittle, which is not good that you have some spots that are more brittle than others. It's definitely way better when you have a consistent size, or not size, but density and structural integrity. I'm actually thinking that all these pieces here, sorry if I didn't notice the camera was off for a minute there, but I think all of these pieces here are pretty much small enough to go into the filament maker. I'm not seeing any huge pieces that I'm completely afraid of. I'm pretty sure the filament maker will be able to handle these, and if not, after I get all these big pieces down again, down back to their, not down back to, but down to where they are about the same size as these, I can just stick everything in there at once and try it again. So I'm just gonna set the camera up here and do a little time lapse of the blending of this. Okay, so that was about after 5 minutes of blending. And I just put this clamp on here to hold the cap down because the cell is starting to vibrate off a little bit. Go ahead and turn the blender off and actually unplug it too. I made some progress. You can see all this filmy, really statically charged stuff. This is our enemy. None of it wants to leave the blender. It's actually not too bad. Those big pieces are still there, but they've broken down to where I feel like, yeah, I can almost say this is ready, but I'm just going to go ahead and stick it in there again, but with all the medium pieces this time, because there are pretty much no more big pieces. Let's go ahead and stick almost everything in there. I'm going to try my best not to put anything in there that doesn't need to be in there, like these small pieces that are almost going to go down in this hole if I let them. Dang, it's just so hard to sort these by hand. I'm gonna have to make my own strainer of some sort, so I can get the bigger but not quite small enough pieces out of there. Well, not small enough to get out of the big blender, that is. I mean, the big strainer. Well, actually, these pieces are going down. Actually, I'm just gonna, yeah, fuck it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do another 5 minutes. See if the added weight inside the blender helps get that stuff even smaller, or if it, since I put everything in there, all the small stuff's just gonna stick to the bottom. Okay, what I just tried while in the middle of that time lapse, I tried to take out some of the HDP or the milk jugs from the. I took out some of the milk jugs from the blender, and I put them into this little coffee grinder I bought at the flea market for like $5. And that actually seemed to blend them down to the size that I wanted. Not quite small enough to go through the strainer, but at the same time, it was great. It was like the perfect size, I would say, for what it is. And it may have been just that the blender blended it down to that size, and I'm just not giving the blender enough credit. But these pieces, actually, yeah, it may have just been the blender, because all of these pieces here seem like they're pretty well the right size to fit. Okay, so we have success. All these well, not pellets, these are pretty much little chunks of HDPE, the milk jugs, that is. These pieces right here seem to be good. In the middle of the time-lapse shot, I took some of the pieces out of the blender and put them into this coffee grinder I bought for like $5 at the flea market, and that seemed to work. But then after I finished the blending of these chips for like 5 minutes, I actually realized that the blender was doing the same thing, but it took a little bit longer. But at the same time, the coffee grinder can only hold, very little, like almost 2 cups if I were to estimate. So in the end, I think the blender was fine by itself and that the coffee grinder wasn't needed, but it did work. So if I were to do this in small quantities, I might want to try the coffee grinder, because it can get higher efficiency, because you can focus on a certain parts or certain bits that you want to grind up. And it did give me slightly smaller pieces, so if this fails due to the size of the pieces, I might actually have to just, whatever I have left that didn't fail, I'll just send it through the coffee grinder 1 or 2 times and see what that does. So this is the end of this video. and that is because I believe it is already going to be too long with all the pieces that I've shot. But thank you for watching. Please comment and subscribe. You can see it's getting dark. That's actually another reason I want to end this video. Thank you, and the next video should be either a continuation of the skate break or something completely different, or a continuation of this. So stay tuned to my channel, subscribe, and if you like the video, like the video. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.